Hey, quick one before we dive in. If you're running a social team, you need to look at Slate. Video and image editing, long to short form clipping, team approvals, and all of your brand guidelines baked in one place to create content, no chaos. It was built by the guy who ran social for the NFL, so he actually knows what your team is dealing with. Go to slateteams.com to learn more.
Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up.
We are back with another episode of the Marketing Millennials, and today I am here with Carmen Vicente. Super excited to chat because she used to run social for a brewing company for years, over a decade, and then now she's been working in tech, but also is a LinkedIn top voice. So has her own personal brand herself. So it's going to be cool to talk about both sides of the coin, what it's like to run brand, but also build yourself out, and then what's it like to pivot in your career at such a late stage. So it's going to be super exciting to talk, but I want you to give you a little bit of how you got into marketing in general.
Yeah, I went to school for creative writing, and I wanted to be a writer. And when I sort of entered the more like business corporate world, it was clear that if I wanted to write, marketing would probably be the way that I would get that done. So I started in a role that was more like communications, and then it evolved into social media, and then eventually that turned into marketing. But really, I think that my start in marketing was my pragmatic brain being like, okay, what job do I get to write in? And, you know, that was how I like made the decision to get into marketing, even though, you know, maybe that's not like a totally direct link for what marketing is.
And I want to go into, so you did spend over a decade at a brewing company. So what does it actually look like? Like, what does your average day look like running a brand social account?
A lot of people think the brewing industry is super cool because there's some sort of like, I don't know, when you work with alcohol, it somehow has this like special aura or something. But I think you could equate it to like a CPG brand. You have physical goods that you're selling. And a lot of what we were doing in our marketing department and in our social media team was like, you know, it's a lot of photo shoots. It's a lot of kind of communicating with the production team, which is funny because I think there's a lot of parallels to tech too. Like, you know, what the product team means in beer and what the product team means in tech are two separate things, but ultimately they're trying to ensure the quality of the product.
I want to actually talk about that transition because you left the beer industry in your 30s, and you described it. I know you described it as like a trust fall, not really a pivot, because you really didn't know anybody in SaaS. So walk me through that moment where you decided to apply to a tech role.
I think I was done selling beer. I didn't want to. A lot of what you do in a marketing department when you work in the beer industry is you're trying to see like, could we, you know, if someone's consumption is like 1 case per week, could we get them to buy 2 cases per week? You know, and I think I was just like, I was ready to be done finding creative ways to get people to drink a little bit more alcohol. And I am not a huge, like, I'm not like constantly listening to podcasts, but I did listen to a podcast at the time that I made this big career change. I'm forgetting what it was called, but it was with Eli Weiss and Cody from Jones Road Beauty. I liked their podcast because I felt like the work I was doing in social, it kind of straddled like marketing and CX. You know, what is social if not somehow kind of like a mixture of those two? So I think that Eli was maybe an ambassador for Gorgeous, the company that I eventually applied to. And so he had lots of good things to say about it. And I remember thinking like, oh yeah, that company's on my radar. You know, if an opportunity ever came up, I would go for it. And so when I decided to leave my beer industry job, I wasn't even dead set on and going into tech. I just was like, I want to work in a different industry. And I actually was ready to get away from physical products. I thought it would be nice to be selling services as opposed to, I just never wanted to take another picture of a bottle of beer. I was so done. So I think, honestly, it was just like having Eli's recommendation that this particular company was that he had such a positive opinion of this company was enough to make me feel like, okay, here's a good recommendation. And so when I saw a job posting for Gorgeous come up, then I applied.
I want to also go through the moment you decided, okay, I've managed a bunch like social profiles, but I want to decide to post for myself. And I know that happened later too. So could you walk me through, like, why did you decide to as a personal brand? Yeah,
I mean, I didn't know. So I pretty much May of 2024 was when I entered tech. And when I did, I didn't really know what LinkedIn was. I knew one of my friends who worked in tech was on LinkedIn. And I remember texting her being like, can you show me what LinkedIn is? Because I've worked in social for so long, but in my mind, LinkedIn wasn't social media. So when I entered my previous role in tech, I had to start posting on LinkedIn just because I was like, surely this is the way that you... I felt like it was part of the job. And it was at a time in LinkedIn's sort of trajectory where the algorithm was so generous. So I was like, wow, this is I was so used to the TikTok and Instagram algorithms that I found LinkedIn to be incredibly, the engagement was very high. People were really forthcoming with positive sort of feedback. And I was like, God, this is so much nicer than Instagram and TikTok, where it's you'll get eaten alive. So I think that having some early momentum helped me feel like, okay, I could begin posting here. But then last year, more as a social experiment, I decided to start posting on TikTok. And I was like, I've managed lots of brand accounts and I've built them up, but algorithms are historically quite hard on brand accounts. They sort of stifle your reach and it's hard to get people to care about a brand. So I thought if I was able to just create content from a personal account, could I learn at an accelerated rate? And I know this is a contentious topic in social media circles. A lot of social media people who work in social media don't want to have to cultivate a personal brand because they feel well, I spend, 8 to 12 hours online already. This feels almost like insult to injury or something. But I kind of went into it less I'm going to build a personal brand and more oh, I'm going to conduct an experiment, almost like I'm a little guinea pig in a lab or something. So, I guess I just started to post on TikTok because I knew that I would report back on it. And that made me feel less kind of used by the platform. If I was no, I'm using you to get insights that then I'll relay back to people on LinkedIn. But the growth on TikTok is so much easier, or I found it to be so much easier than the growth on LinkedIn.
Yeah, could you, I would love to hear that because, some people say the LinkedIn algorithm is so much easier. TikTok is really hard. I don't know how to do it. So what do you feel about TikTok versus LinkedIn, and how do you think about showing up differently on those two platforms?
Yeah, I used to just kind of cross-post a lot of my content where if I had a video do well on TikTok, I would just bring it over to LinkedIn. But increasingly, I really don't mix the platforms because I find that the audiences demand very different topics and approaches and perspectives and all of that. So, on LinkedIn and for work, my life involves a lot of AI, whereas on TikTok and Instagram, I feel you get skewered a lot more if you talk about AI and that isn't, your whole brand. But also the algorithms change so much. A lot of I've made a decent amount of content recently about how right now, Meta's platforms are just juicing reach. I think that they're trying to lure people away from YouTube and TikTok. So right now I would say probably the easiest place to grow, not even probably, if I had to advise anyone, I think the easiest place to grow right now is Instagram or Facebook. Facebook isn't really my cup of tea, but people Threads and Instagram right now, the growth is just kind of wild. But yeah, it's not the same kind of content that does well. And I think if you were you worked in the insurance industry and you were used to writing 500-word written posts, I wouldn't recommend that you start trialing those on TikTok. Like, it's never gonna work. So there's obvious kinds of like creators or thought leaders who probably don't have the necessary components to test out their content on another platform that's more video based. But if you're creating video content, I think that making content for TikTok and Instagram is like a very important boot camp, because it's a ruthless kind of act, and you'll learn very quickly, like, oh, this is not good enough, or like this hook sucks, or like your topic is not well researched enough, or you're just not engaging. So, it's a very quick, like fast feedback loop, and it's very iterative. And what's nice about posting on your own accounts is that, you don't have to go through legal, you don't have to go through other rounds of approval. So if you have a video do poorly or do well, like you can follow it up so quickly and then really like, it sort of accelerate those learnings about what works on these platforms.
It's crazy because I would say like Meta, the Facebook universe is having like a revival where Facebook itself is getting crazy reach. Threads trying to compete with X is getting crazy reach. And then Instagram trying to compete with YouTube Shorts, and TikTok getting crazy reach. So people are like ignoring Facebook and Threads because they thought it was a one and done thing, but you can get millions of views and thousands of views on a Facebook video, which is crazy to think about. It used to be super hard to do that, like 5 years or 6 years ago, to get reach on Facebook, which is crazy.
And I don't think it's just that like the people have changed or that people aren't sleeping on these platforms anymore. It's like, I think it's the algorithms, like I think clearly Meta is doing something funky with their algorithms right now. And it feels like a bit of a monetary stimulus. So they're trying to be like, okay, you can get rich over here. And by rich, I mean, like, we'll give you lots of views.
I also wanted to ask you, I know this is because I've talked to social media managers, I've talked to people who run social, I've talked to like heads of social, and I know it is a contentious topic of, especially when they're applying, like, why don't you have a personal brand? Like, how could you have not grown your personal stuff? Like, why don't you know how to do that and all that stuff? But I want to ask you, for the people out there that are social people that want to take the leap into like creating their own brand, like, what do you recommend them do to just start? Like, what are some like 1-2 tips that you recommend for them to start?
Like you said, like, I empathize with people who don't want to make a personal brand, because it's a lot of work and it's a lot of just like exposing yourself to the internet's trolls, which like you have to have a bit of a thick skin for. But I think what I would say is like, it's easy to sort of spread yourself too thin and be like, okay, I got to be on YouTube Shorts and I got to be on Instagram and I got to be on TikTok and whatever. And like, they're all kind of different. So I think it's worth just like kind of choosing. Like, I really liked having two polar opposites in the beginning. Like, I just did LinkedIn and TikTok for a long time, and I liked that. It's like they're very different. And surprisingly, I think a type of content that works quite well. It doesn't work in both directions all the time, but it's like every time I post about TikTok on LinkedIn, the content performs crazy good. And I think that you can kind of bring insights from one platform to the other, and people are very curious about like that other ecosystem. I mean, I would say on TikTok, people love making fun of LinkedIn. So I think if you're able to like sort of make your LinkedIn experience into more of like a comical data set, then people enjoy it on TikTok. But I don't know. I would say probably I would choose two platforms that represent pretty different demographics, and then see if you can build on those. And maybe it's a matter of like choosing a sort of video native platform and then one that's less video, like say Threads and TikTok or something like that, where it's like one is really just text based and then another is more, video or sort of like clip-y focused. I think another good attack could be like Instagram and Substack or something like that. But I feel like it's too risky to just build on one platform for, even just the algorithmic reasons we just talked about. Sometimes the algorithm gives and sometimes it takes away. So it's better if you're not like having all of your eggs totally in one basket. And I think just content is so much work. It's so much work on top of your regular job, whatever you're already doing, that to like only distribute that high lift project in one platform is a throwaway. Like you've got to just get it at least in two places. So yeah, I think I would probably go for range and choose, like, I don't know if opposite is quite the right term here, but two disparate platforms, and then, try to leverage those two. And if it's going well, you could expand, but also, who's to say that successful creators have to be on 5 platforms or something? There's plenty of people who really just have a strong hold on one.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed too that maybe not format-wise, it will transfer into platforms, but if you have a message or a topic that hits on one platform, you usually can maneuver it well and bring it onto another platform because someone cares.
Totally.
And if it's gone viral on one platform, there's a chance it could go viral on another platform too, or get views
100%.
on another platform. Yeah.
100%. I think that's like really necessary feedback. If you had a Threads post that went viral, like do your best to turn that into a video for something else, and if you had a video that really struck a nerve, then just translate that into a post for LinkedIn. And that's a lot of what I do too, because I often will post a video on TikTok, see what the response is, and then I take like a combination of the commenters' feedback and my own thoughts on like how I've been able to reflect on that video, and then like I'll turn it into a post for LinkedIn. And it gives you a bit more perspective, obviously.
It's crazy. We're like almost 20 minutes in the podcast and we haven't used the word AI yet, but I'm going to ask you the words AI, because this is a lot of work to do all this and manage a brand social account and post, or even if you want to run a personal brand, it's a lot of work because it's if you want to be successful. What are some ways you are leveraging AI to make your job easier to be able to post on multiple platforms, and how is it used in your workflow?
I'd probably say the primary use of AI for me in content is I work for Slate. We make a video editing tool, a content creation tool, and I use Slate shortcuts for any time we have, like we do webinar. I host a webinar every month, and then I always use shortcuts to basically translate the long form content into short form clips. And like that's the kind of use case that I think AI is really nice for in content and with creatives right now. I think there's a lot of times where even if you didn't have a webinar, let's say you're recording a podcast like this, or you have an interview, or you did like, customer interviews, if you work at a software company or something, like there's a lot of times where you have like 1, 2, 3 hours of footage. And the idea of going through it all is like, it's astronomical amounts that's just way too much time. So I like AI for that, for synthesizing big pieces of content into like short clippable stuff. Slate also, I'm going to just keep on plugging it, but Slate also has the ability to like parse out, more share-worthy moments for you, or you can search by a specific speaker. So it's something that I like legitimately use every single week. But I think that in terms of more like not a proprietary product, I really hate reading AI writing. And I just finished Sam Chris's article on Substack about he like says if you use AI to write, I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna kill you. You don't have to include that in the show if that's too crazy, but it's a really funny article about how he's like, you think I can't tell? I can tell. And recently I've come across a few women on TikTok who are saying like, don't use LLMs to write your content, but you can use LLMs to say like, what do you think my positioning should be? Or like, based on the performance of these 50 different posts across TikTok and Instagram, like, what are the clear common denominators on the post that got over 50K views? It's like, I think that using it to synthesize like where my content has impact is also another area where I think that it's like, yes, it makes sense to have it analyze like huge amounts of inputs. So those are two places where I think that it's been useful for me. And I don't know if this makes me like, if I'm aging myself or something, but I'm like pretty anti using it to write any copy. And I know that was like the first ways that a lot of social and marketing teams decided to use LLMs. And I think it's kind of a shame. I hope we're outgrowing it. I do kind of get the sense that we are. Aside from that, I also like just built this tool It's like an internet troll tool where like, we always joke in social that like, internet trolls are the worst and they get into your comment threads and they just kind of wreak havoc. But I like purposefully created this internet troll that's like very crotchety and grumpy. And basically like, there are times on a social team where you publish a post and then you realize like, crap, I didn't really realize that, it could be taken out of context or that some people would misconstrue its meaning. And so this tool, I called it Heckleton, which is just a stupid name for this troll. But Heckleton, you like feed it your scripts or your captions or things that are going to go live on social. And basically it will like flag areas of concern that aren't necessarily on your radar or that are like tying into current events. So it's like pulling from a few different things. Like it's synthesizing my notes. It's also like kind of giving me a final read on things before it goes live. But it's also, it's like you might be working on a team where you're kind of in a bubble and you don't realize that like some breaking news story has just like changed the landscape of the, online world that day. And so this little tool is, I guess I joked that it was like supposed to save me headaches and PR nightmares. So that's another way that I use AI.
I think that's a really cool use case because I've run into problems because I write content a lot and I run into problems. Am I going to get canceled if I say this?
Yeah.
Or like, is there anything in this copy? Am I like have
Totally.
blinders on? And sometimes you can't get feedback from so many people. So if you have AI just give you a quick read, which is something you might need of like current events, what's happening, and
totally.
notes
And
from
sometimes
team.
you don't know, like you might have like a reference or like a joke in your post and you don't realize like, oh, that joke is actually quite offensive to this like, demographic of people. Or, it's like, I think it's good to have, like you say, you can kind of have blinders on, or you might not totally have like sensitivities to all of the subgenres of, people who are reading your stuff on the internet. So this helps to prevent those.
I mean, I have one recent example. Like I made like a little joke about how I made this image with ChatGPT or something, and then it was kind of a little offensive to like designers out there because like they're like, why didn't you just get a designer to do it? Like why are you using? So you have to really think about every little aspect and who it might offend.
And it's timing too. Like, I saw somebody, they put out an article the other day about, they were trying to be conscientious, and they were saying like, the job you have this year is not the job you're going to have next year. Like basically your job is going to evaporate, even if that means that, you'll still be employed, but it'll be different. And people were saying like, oh, this is not a good title in the wake of all of the Meta layoffs. And it's like, okay, so it's not even that the joke was perhaps like insensitive, but it was insensitive at that particular time. So, sometimes it's like more of a timing thing than topic.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is timing thing. I think a lot of it, like what landed 5 years ago is not going to land today, and as what landed today is not going to land 5 years from now. So, or even 10, a week from now, it might not land. Yeah. So, with the current landscape, I think those are really good use cases, and I also do truly believe that AI just helps. Like if you're not a great writer and you're trying to use AI to write and you don't know what great writing looks like, you're just going to post not great writing and you don't know how to give feedback. So like great writers could spot out AI because they're great writers. Non-great writers cannot spot it out because they're not great writers. And like with everything is if you don't have a foundation of what great looks like, it's hard to, or have your taste and years of experience and years of studying creative writing. If you didn't have that, you would probably, it'll be so much harder to spot these things. But since it's in your brain and you've studied it, you know how to write great copy. It's like, why am I going to use AI when I could use originality and creativity of my own self, and maybe have AI come in and as like an opinionator or an editor or a second viewpoint, but not as the main source.
We're brought to you by Slate today. And honestly, if you run social for a brand, listen in for like 20 seconds. How many tools are you using just to make content?
because most teams are at 5 or 6 apps. And you're still chasing logos in some Google Drive folder nobody's organized since 2022. Slate is one content creation workspace. The NFL, Amazon, New York Times are on it. The Pistons literally ditched CapCut for Slate. Video and image editing, AI clipping, approvals, brand assets, all of it. SlateTeams.com, links in the show notes. Back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's so many arguments to be made. I understand how like people could have a debate with very good, like I said, arguments on both sides about like why they needed AI to refine some part of their argument. But these days in marketing and social, I feel like it's just like it's a slippery slope for using it for copy generation, and I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, it is a slippery slope. I mean, some of the biggest brands are using it, which is scary. And it's also so sad because it's ruined some things that great writers use every day and makes them look like they're AI generated too, because they use an M dash which is crazy to we're great writers. There's a lot of things going out there that's crazy. I wanted to also, since you do talk about this every day, could you like quickly describe this, go through maybe LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, and maybe one more platform. What do you think the algorithm looks like on those platforms, and what is a reward and disincentivize?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I think the LinkedIn algorithm actually rewards a lot of personality right now. Like, I think people have this cliched vision in their heads of like LinkedIn just being like optimization bros. But in all honesty, I find that it's quite favorable to people who like venture outside of those sort of formulaic post styles. So I think on LinkedIn, I would encourage people to be a little bit more themselves and share a bit more of like their insights rather than like believing they have to stay so like middle of the lane with their perspectives. I also think that like, on LinkedIn, you're always going to get better engagement and reach if you can tie that unique perspective back to some sort of business lesson. So like that is the professional element, less so than like maybe the tone. On Instagram, I mean, talking head kind of yapping videos are really like the bread and butter, I think, of most people's growth strategies. I think that there's always like the risk on Instagram that people kind of get bored of your shtick. So now people have to treat their brands as like fully fledged like media agencies where they don't just create one kind of content. You know, they have 3 kinds of content that they regularly cycle through, and they're all these different series. So it's like, I don't know. I think on Instagram, you get rewarded for treating your content almost like a show, you know, where there's like different kinds of, there's like small bite-sized things, and then there's also like slightly longer format, and you got to post your stories and do your instance. So it's like on Instagram you just have to use all of its product features, but certainly I think the like talking head to camera yapping video is like the easiest way to grow. On TikTok, I still think that this like it still rewards a less polished version than Instagram. Like, I think you can have way worse like camera quality, audio quality, all of that, and do great on TikTok. But I don't know, it's strange. I find TikTok to be way more volatile. My numbers are always volatile there. Like, I have my highest highs on TikTok in terms of reach and engagement, and I also have my lowest lows. Whereas like Instagram is more of this like median line that just like moves through every piece of content. And then Substack, I'm also on. I don't know if that's one that you think about much, but Substack, I feel, is like the platform where like any sniff of AI is just like, so, you know, they'll crush you for that. So I think unless your Substack is about like how to use AI, really there is a much bigger appetite for like long form writing, big pieces that people will read. The attention spans are the highest on Substack. And so that's kind of like it represents an interesting corner of the internet, but it's also like the demands are high. You know, if you're using an LLM to write on Substack, like your days are numbered.
Yeah, article-driven platforms, I feel like I've seen people using tools to say, 68% AI generated from LLMs. They really go hard. If you're going to write a 1,000-word article, this better be coming from your fingers or your voice to text or something. Yeah, it better be coming out of you. Otherwise, you're going to get trolled really hard. Like Reddit used to be the same thing. If you did generic, fluffy type posts where you would do on LinkedIn, some people would do on LinkedIn and try to bring it over to Reddit, they would sniff you out because they want originality. They want people talking from experience. They want actual.
I mean, you want to have like one final corner of the internet where the bots don't touch. And so I get that people are like, no, this is a safe zone, like don't come in here.
Could you tell me about the creator challenge that happened at Slate and where did that idea come from?
Yeah, I mean, that's Christina Lee's baby. So I can do my best to sort of like translate her vision. But basically, we did a mini rebrand for Slate, and we had chatted internally about the fact that, oftentimes software companies will be like, hey, we rebranded, and like their blue is now a turquoise or something like that. And it's just like inside the operation, people care a lot, but like the audience or the average viewer is like, I don't give a shit. I don't care what color you turned your logo to. I don't care if you changed your fonts. So just traditionally, rebrands can take up a lot of your mental bandwidth when you work at these companies, but to the outside world, they're really insignificant. And so we were saying, with that understanding, like what do we want to do to get the word out that we had like a mini rebrand and just raise some awareness for Slate? And Christina was like, well, maybe we should, it's almost like more trustworthy if it doesn't come from us. If we don't say, oh, we're so thrilled to announce our rebrand. So she reached out to a bunch of creators. We worked with Creator Buzz, which is a B2B agency. And basically I think it ended up being 11 people total who they had to announce the Slate rebrand, but use Slate to do it. So it was a very meta campaign. And ultimately, I think it was, it was picked up by a lot. Like the marketing team at LinkedIn talked about it, and we had some really nice mentions. But I think people appreciated that it was just like a less straightforward, more creative way to talk about a rebrand that didn't just feel like the employees, being forced to write their 500-word post and publish it on LinkedIn.
It's so funny, the LinkedIn, I'm thrilled to announce that. I think that the anti that, which is, I still see so many brands treating LinkedIn like one of those old like press release feeds, which is crazy to me, and where I totally believe we're in a social first era. It's so crazy to me that they use it as like a checkbox, which is absurd.
Nobody wants to read, I'm so thrilled.
Yeah, exactly. I want to go more of a personal question for you, and then I have one more last marketing question. But you seem to have conquered a lot of what people probably would have imposter syndrome doing, like switching jobs to a whole new industry, a whole new sector. You also did what most social media managers could be a little afraid of, and going on to posting on for yourself, which is it takes a lot of imposter syndrome to get over posting for yourself, because like you said, the internet trolls are always out to get you on brand. But when you're yourself, it's like the internet trolls are attacking you, not a brand anymore. So what advice do you give to any marketer out there if they have that imposter syndrome to say, take that leap for a job or post on social? What advice would you give to them?
I mean, I think that we all have different motivations for why we want to post. And I think if you were like, hey, I wanted to get lots of followers, I don't know if that would keep you going for long enough. Like my feeling was I just wanted to be more visible. Like I when I left my beer industry job, I had worked so hard and given so much of myself for like 12 straight years at this company. And I felt like I emerged and had zero to show for it. I could, if I had to, I could point to our old Instagram account or our old TikTok account and say, hey, I built this. But I think just it's like, I've chatted about this with Christina before, and I've chatted about this with other people in our industry, but it's like, I think of building a personal brand less in terms of like, oh, this is me being brave, and more about it as like, this is me building an insurance policy. This is me ensuring that I am on people's radar, that I'm making my perspective heard, or that I'm like showing some of my skills, whether that's like even just like crafting a narrative that becomes a video or writing a script or something like that. And I just think the reality is like, if you don't kind of sing your praises, like no one else is going to notice you, and no one else is going to think or see that you're doing good work. It's not that they won't think you're doing good work, but I feel like I just don't think it's very helpful framing for people to think of building let's say a professional personal brand. I don't mean you have to be on on Instagram, like sharing what you eat in a day or something like that. But it's like, I think we frame it as, oh, it's a big scary thing, and certainly there's risks involved. But I'm like, yeah, it's also like risky not to have a professional personal brand, because the risk is that all of your professional achievements never ever get like not even celebrated, but like made part of the public record or something like that. Like if all of your achievements live in a private sort of vault, like you're in big trouble. That's actually incredibly risky. So I think of building a personal brand as me being almost like mitigating the career risk in my life. And that's really like the message I would send people is that if you want to have less anxiety about the future of work, make your work more publicly known.
I think that's a great way to frame what a professional personal brand is. I always used to say it's like networking at scale. I used to hate like networking. I wouldn't say hate, but I have had a fear of doing in person. Sure. So when I started posting on LinkedIn, it was my way of like showing my personality, but in a scaled version where I don't have that like social anxiety to go out and talk to people. And then, and also showing that actual executors do the work, and a lot of marketing companies and a lot of people at the top don't. I'm not saying that it's in all companies, but I've been in a lot of companies where the CMO knows less than a lot of people.
Sure.
Lastly, I want to ask you, and because I ask everybody on this podcast, is what's a marketing hill you would die on?
A marketing hill I would die on. I mean, this maybe sounds like a cop-out, but it's like, you should build a professional personal brand, because if you're not, you're leaving yourself at risk. And I'd put maybe like a little asterisk there that's like, a professional personal brand is different than just a personal brand where you're talking about like the matcha you just drank or something like that. Like a professional personal brand is a little more calculated, and it's a little more reserved in terms of what you're actually sharing. So I don't think I would have given that answer 5 years ago, but in 2026, if you aren't building a personal brand, I think you are probably making yourself more vulnerable to the uncertain future of work.
I don't think that's a cop-out answer at all. I think it's what people need to hear if they're on the verge of deciding, should I build a personal brand or shouldn't I build a personal brand? Because it is, since I built mine, I've never had to use a resume ever again, because I didn't have to, because it's all, I've been talking online for a long time. So it is in your insurance policy. And I think you wouldn't tell someone to like buy a house and not take out insurance. It's the same with a job. Like you could get in this, you can get fired tomorrow and you have nothing to 100%. Show for, and there's nobody hyping you up. Like you said, that's just something that you got to get over in your career, is you are your best hype person, whether you like it or not. It's not bragging. It's, you have to share your wins, because nobody's going to do it. There will be some people who will, but not everybody's going to, they're out for themselves. Everybody is out for themselves.
It's not their job to be your hype person. Yeah.
Okay, well, where could people find you? Where could people go follow the LinkedIn top voice? On LinkedIn, I'm just my name, Carmen Vicente. On Instagram and TikTok, I'm at Carm Scrolls. And on Substack, I write a newsletter called Scroll Sick. Amazing. I mean, I just want to give you hype for that because I know LinkedIn has pretty hard requirements for someone to become top voice because they have pretty big. So for you to become that means shows that you are putting out value to the audience, and I think your audience, and I think people should follow you because LinkedIn is signaling that, hey, she puts out great content. So you should go follow Carmen.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been great. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.